You're listening to In Touch with Terri, brought to you by the Inbound Podcasting Network and Terri Ross Consulting, expert management consulting and sales training to help your aesthetic practice thrive.
If you were in business, I think it's by February of this year, you should be eligible for some sort of funding under this new bill. It's going to depend upon how many employees you have and what your payroll was for the past year. But it's actually a fairly simple calculation. And the government has tried to make it easy because they understand that with everything coming to a standstill, nobody's making any money. Everyone is going to fail if you don't get relief. So bottom line is that if you're a small business under 500 employees, you will be able to get funding. The goal is to have it be enough to bridge the gap so you can pay all your employees and pay your rent, at least until such time as the economy can get going again. Who knows how long we're going to be at this, but everyone should be able to get some money. We're going to have a lot of information about that.
Hello, Terri's Tribe, and welcome to episode 10 of In Touch with Terri. It's a podcast that is designed for healthcare professionals looking to develop systems and processes to attract more clients. The voice you just heard belongs to Alex Thiersch, CEO of the American Med Spa Association. Alex is also the host of his own podcast called Medical Spa Insider, of which our very own Terri Ross has been a guest a couple of times. My name is Tim Cicciarelli. I'm with Inbound Digital Media and the content marketing specialist for Terri Ross Consulting. And at the time of this recording, we are smack dab in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic and, frankly, the shutdown of just about everything. In this episode, you will be updated on how this coronavirus shutdown has affected the medical spa industry as a whole. And with this shutdown, we are all experiencing lost revenue, and a lot of it. As a result, there will be federal aid available. So Alex and Terri will discuss the parameters around the qualifications for those who will be eligible for federal aid. They will also be providing many suggestions on the things that you can be doing right now during the shutdown so that you're prepared when life and business finally does get back to normal. And finally, how you can take advantage of telemedicine or telehealth to generate revenue and produce value for your patients.
Hey Tribe, it's Terri with Terri Ross Consulting, and I am so excited. Today is Monday, and I have the CEO and founder of American Medical Spa, AmSpa, that is Alex Thiersch. So welcome, Alex. He is also an associate at Bertodato Law Firm, which is an amazing law firm that handles all the legal and compliance stuff with medical spas and plastic surgery practices. In addition, he has his own Medical Insider podcast. So welcome, Alex. I'm super excited to have you here today, especially in light of what's happening, because for those of you guys that don't know, AmSpa provides the only resource hub that offers the compliance, the legal, the business resources for anybody that is looking to start a medical spa, has a medical spa, wants to scale, wants to remain compliant and legal. And if you're in a plastic surgery space and this is a new avenue for you, I would highly, highly encourage you to take a listen to this podcast and then also check out AmSpa for the resources. So Alex, welcome, hon.
Well, I don't think anything else needs to be said. Let's just end it right there. You introduced me. You nailed it.
Listen,
really
I gotta give you all the props.
Of course, I'm happy to be here. This has been such a weird time for everybody. I hope we can provide some relevance and some good pointed content for your listeners. But I'm excited to be here. How are you doing, Terri? How are you holding up?
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm doing good. And, I think a lot of people have seen us together, obviously at the boot camps. They've seen us do a couple of podcasts together, but I thought that it was really vital, especially right now and today early on, as we're kind of approaching this, 1 month. So I'd love for you to share with the tribe, with the audience, from your perspective, how has this impacted the medical spa industry overall? And I know you guys have been putting together a lot of really strategic tactics to put out information. Can you share with us a little bit about that?
I mean, it's impacted everything, right? So there's no question that the medical spa industry has been impacted as much as anybody. I think in some ways more because we're like retail stores. If you turn off the economy, nobody can come in and get treatments, and nobody's making any money. So people are really freaked out, but I also think that they're very encouraged by how the market was ahead of time. So we just got to get through this part and get the economy going again. And once that starts happening, there's such a demand for medical aesthetic services. There's such a demand for all the things that we offer. We've just got to get it going. Unfortunately, that's going to take some time. And, I feel really bad for some of the med spas that are out there. It's just, it's really tough to keep your lights on and to keep employees and to keep everything going when there's zero revenue coming in. And there's going to be relief in the form of federal aid that comes down the pipe. And we're looking at that already. But even when that happens, it's not necessarily going to be really fast. It's going to take some time. And then the question that I, have been thinking about now, what we've been kind of shifting towards is what happens after that, right? Once you get this federal aid, and maybe even once you get this virus under control and the economy opens back up, it's not going to be, full blast right away. There's going to be some time. So this is going to be a tough time for everybody. But I will tell you, if you can get through it and you can marshal your resources, preserve enough cash, get to that point where you're getting some of the federal funding, and if you're working on your business in the background, you're going to come out stronger than ever on the front end. I'm very, very sure about that. It's going to be tough to make sure that, see who can get there, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough time for some people.
Thank you. That's so good information. And I want to recap on a couple of things. So you mentioned the federal funding. Are there any parameters around the qualifications of who would be eligible and who wouldn't?
We're actually on Wednesday, we're doing a webinar on the specific requirements of the new law and who can get funding. But if you were in business, I think it's by February of this year, you should be eligible for some sort of funding under this new bill. It's going to depend upon how many employees you have and what your payroll was for the past year. But it's actually a fairly simple calculation. And the government has tried to make it easy because they understand that with everything coming to a standstill, nobody's making any money. Everyone is going to fail if you don't get relief. So the way that I see it happening, and we've looked at it in some detail, and we've got a lot more to talk about. We're going to have a couple of lawyers on to help. We also have a banker coming on from the SBA who's going to help with that. But bottom line is that if you're a small business under 500 employees, you will be able to get funding. The goal is to have it be enough to bridge the gap so you can pay all your employees and pay your rent, at least until such time as the economy can get going again. My strong suspicion is they're going to have to do additional funding sources for this, because this will last maybe a couple months and then it's going to dry up, and who knows how long we're going to be at this. But everyone should be able to get some money. We're going to have a lot of information about that.
To Alex's point, and I read this statistic recently, Harvard Business Review put out this press release talking about, like, in recessions, businesses can thrive, right? If we pivot and shift our mindset to what you said, we can't freak out. We can only control what we can. And the majority of the time, these practices are seeing patients. So there's not a lot of time for the execution. Even when they attend your boot camps, when they come back, they're like, shit, I learned all this stuff, but I have no time to do it. And so now, you guys, one of the biggest things Alex just said, and I would encourage you, is like, work on your business, right? You have software, you have these resources that you get from AmSpa, you have sales training from myself. Like, really invest in your team right now, or while they're sitting at home, take advantage of this opportunity. So when you come back, Alex also said it, the demand, you guys, listen, our roots are going to be black, our nails are going to be long, we're going to be wrinkled. And people are going to need these true. I mean, really, no, there's no joke. They're going to need these filler appointments. And it sounds silly, but we have got to be prepared so that you have patients on the books when your doors are open. And that's one of the things Alex and I talked about, is encouraging the things you can do now and really staying relevant and engaging with your patients.
Most of the time when you're in a recession, you're absolutely right. The businesses that are still in business, like, you're working 10 times as hard because you're scrambling to stay alive. Whereas now you really do, there is time to get to know your business even better. Like, one example I always use is if you're using QuickBooks, right? Just something as simple as QuickBooks, which is just your basic, bookkeeping software. Most people don't know anything about that, and they use it as just you could take a day and just learn it. All your other software too, you can learn that. All the scripts and the talking points, the sales strategies that you're doing, it's a perfect time to start practicing that, and just to have your team be involved in doing things over and over again. And here's the thing, I guarantee that not everybody is going to do that, right? So there will be a portion of our med spa industry that doesn't work on their business, that doesn't do the things that need to happen, and they're going to be the ones who ultimately fail. So if you are one of the people who are there and you've got time, make it worth it. There's so much you can be doing right now to make yourself a better business. And I know you know this, I'm preaching to the choir, but it's so important, because otherwise, you can get really kind of down just sitting around your house, like there's nothing going on. What's going to happen? You start letting your mind wander. You get on the wormhole. Next thing you know, it's like zombies are walking down the street and we're all, it's apocalyptic. That's not going to happen. Like, we're going to get through this. We're going to come out on the other side. And where are you going to be on the other side? Like, are you going to be one of those practices that is better than you were before and positioned to make more money than you were before? I mean, I think, and we don't know, but there's a chance that 10, 20% or more of the industry could go under as a result of this. I hope that doesn't happen, but we don't know what's going to happen. If it does happen and you survive, there's still that demand is going to be there, and you're going to need to be there and ready to do it. So there's so much you can do. So I think what you're doing is great. I encourage everyone to look at your sales training. I've seen you in action. You're amazing at it. There's so much you can do right now to make yourself better.
This is a good time, you guys, in addition to what Alex said, is go on the AmSpa site. If you're not a member, become one, read the legal summaries, because there are still many people operating illegally. And especially with this is what Alex said, when you come back, we cannot afford to fuck around. It hurts everybody in the industry, right? We want to make sure you guys are operating within compliance and having the providers doing the procedures that they're able to do so that you can stay afloat. Alex, talk to me a little bit about the telemedicine now. Have you seen this massive surge of people trying to shift their efforts into doing these telehealth consultations? And what do you think about that?
Yeah. So, it was happening before, just on a much slower pace. And obviously with everyone being at home now, it's like the opportunity is there. And one of the things that we've seen the federal and state governments loosen their restrictions a little bit. So it's a little bit easier for folks to do telemedicine than it was before. Some of the HIPAA and privacy requirements have been loosened a little bit. A state like Texas just released some guidelines where they had a very strict telemedicine law, and they're letting it go a little bit. So there's opportunity there. I think, again, it's going to be come down to who executes on it. Who's the one to set up your telemedicine system so that there's some value to it. Part of the problem that we're seeing right now is that even though you can do a consult via telemedicine, what types of treatments are you going to be able to do? Because you still can't see the patient. But I think so if you can find a way to provide value to your patients through telehealth, and then whether it's booking for things later on, or if it's a skincare regimen, or if it's just educating people on what they can do later on, any way that you can keep yourself relevant to your patients and keep yourself in front of them is going to be huge, because not everybody's doing that, right? So we see everybody jumping over to the telehealth, and I think that's great. If you're going to do it, make sure you do it right, and make sure you really get after it. Make sure you communicate with your patients. Like, what's the, one of the things that Terri, we always talk about at our boot camps is, what's the why, right? Why, if you're going to do telemedicine, why are you doing it? Is there a way for you to generate revenue and produce value for your patients, or are you just doing it because you can, and and you're not going to generate revenue or create value? There's a cost to it, so you've got to analyze it. But if you're going to do it, figure out the why, figure out how you're going to monetize it as best you can, and then get after it. There's so many great platforms out there that are popping up. I know you've got a relationship with a few of them. I've talked to most of them as well. There's some really great platforms out there, and you can do it. You can do it immediately. You can get set up and start going like almost the same day, I think. So it's pretty cool.
I love that you said the why, because I think that comes down to everything that's happening in this industry. I mean, really any medical industries, but especially ours in plastic surgery is the why. But are you finding that the intention is to, I hope the intention, right, is to really provide the value, the engagement that you just talked about, the relevancy, but more importantly, knowing that these people are going to need to come back in. And you said it earlier, taking this time to not only perhaps learn QuickBooks, but, what patient management software system you have.
Mm-hmm.
Are you running any reports that could paint the story of the patients that you should be calling now so that they're in, at the end of May or June,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
would you agree that the goal would kind of be to do this so that your books can be filled? One of the tactics.
Yeah. Oh, the decision of whether or not you're going to start doing telehealth is kind of its own. But I think what you're saying is it's part of a larger kind of strategy that you can be putting into place right now to get yourself in front of your patients. I think just remember, one of the things that we've talked about a couple of times is when you start setting up your practice management software or your contact database, whatever you're using, whether it's even if it's just MailChimp or if it's one of the bigger ones, setting up those funnels and those messages for each one of your segments takes a lot of time, right? Figuring out how you're going to communicate with your patients, how quickly, what the drip campaigns are going to be, what messages people are going to get. It takes a long time to set that up, and they often get dated after just a couple months. So if you're sitting here right now and you've got a month or 6 weeks right now, that's a perfect time to really dive into that and figure out, number one, if you don't have a contact management CMS, then get it. If you do, really dive into it and figure out what these different funnels are, these different segments are, and what types of messages you're going to send to them. And then once you get that figured out, and that could be, if they're male patients over the age of 40, or if they're millennials or whatever they are, if they're new patients, if they're repeat patients, what's the message you're going to send to them? Draft those messages and make it automated, and then build into that. Maybe you can do a complimentary telehealth consult, as part of that package. Again, but it's all got to be, why are you doing it all? What's the point? What's the point not only to you, but what's the point to your patients who are seeing it? What are they going to want, and what are they going to get out of it? Because it's got to be of value to them, right? It can't be a value to you necessarily. It needs to be, but it's got to be of value to your patients. So try to think of it from their perspectives.
You said it. So on one hand, we want to bring value and the human element to knowing that what we're facing right now, and everyone wants to preserve their cash. That being said, we do need to try to, generate some sort of revenue if we can. What are your thoughts on people offering these huge discounts right now, putting these promotions on on their website or on social? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I don't know. And I honestly, I'm not trying to be evasive or cheeky. I don't know. And I think there's so much that is new about what we're dealing with, and there's so much unknown about it. And I just saw a stat that said, the unemployment rate could be 30 or 35%, within a month, right? Which is, that's Great Depression levels. And it will come back because it's a totally different time, and there's different constructs that are governing this. But what I mean to say is it's almost, I have no idea what's going to work and what's not, because we don't know how long this is all going to last. What I would say is, anything, cash is king right now. We know that. You have to be able to survive. That is kind of the name of the game. It's survival at this point. So how do you maintain as much cash as you can so you can pay the bills that need to be paid, you can continue being relevant to your patients, and you can bridge that time until you get to a point where you can start actually treating patients again. And if offering specials is one way to do that, it can increase your cash flow. I think I would be very careful with that, though, just because, as we've seen with things like Groupon back in the day, if you start discounting for treatments that are going to be paid or going to be performed later on, you can really get yourself behind the 8 ball once you're up and going again, because you're going to be providing treatments that you've already been paid for, and that money's already been spent. You're going to get low on your cash flow once you get going. It's not just getting through this next month or whatever. It's planning beyond that, so that you know exactly how much cash you're going to need in the next 6 months, a year after. Because let's be honest, even in 6 months from now, once the economy is going again, it's not like you turn the water on and it's all coming back again. There are going to be people who don't have as much time. They're not going to have as much money. The patient list is going to be a little bit lower at first. So you need to manage your money and set a plan in place, because it's not going to do you any good to get this federal money that's coming in and then have it be spent, or to do specials and have cash come in and have it be spent, because the next time you run out of money, there's not going to be any backdrop for you. It's going to be curtains at that point. So you've really got to be careful. So, I mean, I like that people are doing that and becoming creative. So, as the saying goes, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So in these times, we're going to see people get very creative and get innovative and invent different ways to make cash. I think that's great, and I think people need to do that, but just make sure you are watching what's going to happen on the back end, because everything has unintended consequences. And if you bring in a bunch of cash right now and then you're doing treatments later on, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. That could really get you in kind of a vicious cycle where you're spinning your wheels and not bringing in money to pay yourself at the moment.
It's great to want to bring and offer your patients something that they can save for later. But if you get that income now and spend it, that's kind of what Alex is saying, right? You're going to be in more of a detrimental place in the long run. So I guess, everybody has their point of view, and we all have to do what's supportive of your business. Just be cautious to that. Alex, with regard to the boot camps, I guess I have two questions. When we get up and running, and I hope to God we're in LA, my hometown here, that we can have the boot camp at the end of May. Since we had to miss out on Arizona and Ohio, do you plan on adding 2 more? Or no?
So no, right now we are planning on adding 2 more. So we are still planning on having 8. We're going to have to squeeze them in, but it could change because obviously we don't know how long this is going to go. So, and we just don't know exactly what the environment's going to be when we come back. But we would like to do 8. I think people, they want to come, but if we need to squeeze them into 6, we'll do that. It just really depends on kind of what happens. We want to be providing as many opportunities and in as many locations for people to get this, the business education. Because remember, we don't do, although this year we're partnering with Allergan and they're coming on and doing some clinical training, but our boot camps it's business with a sprinkle of compliance, right? So it's the legal and it's the business side of things. That's where we focus. And it's so invaluable for people to learn just like how to read a balance sheet, how to do a budget, what's a business plan, what's a marketing plan. So we're not only are we going to be doing more, but the other thing that we just are getting ready to announce is, and this is kind of a sneak peek, is we are going to be doing an online boot camp as well that we're going to be releasing. So folks, when they're sitting at home, they can watch, Terri, you'll be on it, I'll be on it, all the usual players to give their, to learn a little bit. And that should be coming out here within a week or so. So we're pretty excited about that.
You just stole my thunder, honey. That's what I was going to tell everybody. You guys listen truly. So you're going to get the best of the best. You won't get to see us in person. But you will get to hear all the amazing lineup of speakers and the most invaluable content you could ever hear. To Alex's point, I mean, this is where, it's like the cream of the crop. This is where you come to learn and be able to take away and actually implement. So, Alex, anything else kind of on your front that you guys are doing? I know you guys are putting on a lot of webinars, as much as education as you can. And I know that we've all been putting out information, whether personally or through AmSpa, on, calling your landlords, calling your vendors, calling your banks. Any additional comments on that in terms of where these people can preserve their cash, lower their interest rates or rent? I mean, anything that you're seeing, from a positive perspective?
No, I think what I would really focus on is over the next couple of weeks, there's certain things you can do right now, which we're going to go over on Wednesday, actually, to get your documents and your business structure in order to be able to obtain some of this emergency funding as quickly as possible. The way it's going to work is that this emergency funding is going through the normal channels through banks. Those banks are going to service their initial clients first, and then they're going to move on to kind of everybody else. And they're going to be requesting, whether you have your last year's tax returns, your payroll tax returns, a P&L, a budget for the year, all this stuff. And a lot of people just don't have that handy. To the extent you can get that ready to go, because honest to God, for most of us, the only thing that's really going to help us is to be able to get access to some of this funding to bridge for the next couple months. So you've got to get in and get it as quickly as possible. And that means having your act together. So we're going to have some resources where we can hopefully help people do that. And I know you've got some too. So whatever we can do over the next couple of weeks to make this process easier for folks, we're going to do, because without the industry, we don't exist. The boot camps don't exist. The medical spa show doesn't exist. So we've got to make sure that everybody survives this as much as possible. So that's our goal for the next month or so, is just be as much of a resource as we can for everybody in the industry and get them as much information as possible.
Where can they find the information to get involved in that webinar on Wednesday, and what time?
So we're actually going to record the webinar on April 1st, which is this Wednesday, and then it's going to live on our site. So we have a couple places you can find it, but we have a coronavirus resource center on our site where we've posted, we had a podcast with a financial planner, we had with an infectious disease doctor, a bunch of people. That's where it's going to live. So you'll be able to find it there and download it and watch it whenever you want.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Awesome. And I think you guys, lastly, before we wrap up, we were talking a little bit about this telehealth, and, you heard Alex talk about the why. I'm also going to be offering, as you guys know, like sales is my jam. But more importantly, it's really about the conversion of it and the level of engagement right now, because we have to come at this from again, a very humble and a very caring, sensitive fashion, but knowing that we're doing something good. So I'm going to be partnering with TouchMD. They have an invaluable resource in terms of what they offer for their consultation process, but it takes that human element of engagement. So I'm going to be offering this free webinar on how people can work to help convert those telehealth consults into getting people on the book. So thank you, Alex. This was amazing. I always love having you. I love what you guys do. I love being a part of it and being able to provide all of these valuable resources. Anything you want to leave the audience with before we kind of take a wrap on it?
Everyone needs to stay strong, stay focused, listen to In Touch with Terri, get as much information and as much education as you can right now. Because I guarantee when we get back up and going, we're all going to be running around like with our hair on fire, and we're going to wish we had this time back to do this stuff. So you've got all the resources that people need. So between what you're offering and what we've got at AmSpa, I think, there's so much out there. And I just, I think it should be known, and I'm sure you feel the same way too. I'm very excited about this industry. This is a pothole. Unfortunately, it's a very large pothole, but we'll get through it. And when we do and come out on the other side, it's going to be bigger and better than ever. So that's the focus. And thank you so much for having me. This is
my
awesome.
God, thank you. Thank you. I'm super grateful. Tribe, thank you so much. If you're new to this podcast, I'm so grateful to have you here, and I'll continue to listen, continue to watch in, so we can just give you guys all the information. And please don't hesitate to DM me, whether it be on the podcast, In Touch with Terri, or on my terrirossconsulting.com or my Instagram, and give me some feedback. I want to hear what you guys need, what you want to learn, and how we can support you and help you. So thanks so much. Talk soon.
Special thanks to Alex Thiersch, CEO of the American Med Spa Association, for joining us here on In Touch with Terri. As we mentioned at the top of the episode, Alex also has a podcast of his own titled Medical Spa Insider. We'll go ahead and provide a link in the show notes so that you can subscribe to his podcast as well. Earlier in the episode, Alex mentioned that on the AmSpa website, you'll find a page dedicated to a coronavirus resource center with information to support your aesthetic practice. That link will also be prominently displayed in the episode notes. As you recall, Alex and Terri implored you to use this downtime to educate yourself and work on your business so that when life and business finally does get back to normal, you and your practice will be better than ever. Well, Terri Ross has just what you need to make the most of this shutdown. Terri has an online video course titled Practice Foundational Elements, your roadmap to a 7-figure medical practice. This video course offers 5 modules to help you build a rock-solid foundation for your business, and with information that is based off of Terri's 20-plus years of sales experience and her proven methods of scaling a Beverly Hills medical spa, yielding growth of $600,000 in just 1 year. Terri's online course also includes access to Terri's Tribe. That's a private Facebook group, workbooks, talk tracks, and key performance indicators, KPIs, which on their own are valued at about $1,500. Plus, you'll also receive 13 critical components to a successful phone call. And to top it all off, how about a 30-minute call with Terri Ross herself following your completion of the course? That way she can answer any questions that you might have and also give you and your team an extra dose of motivation to transform your practice during this shutdown. It's a perfect way for you to spend your time. And you might also want to think about having high-quality marketing videos produced for your website, social media platforms, and video-driven ad campaigns that I would personally love to assist you with. My company, Inbound Films, produced all of the videos for Terri's Med Spa in Beverly Hills, and of course all of the videos on her website and her YouTube channel. I am offering a free video conferencing consultation via Zoom, and if we find that we're a good fit, we can begin our strategic pre-production process during this social distancing phase so that we can be ready to film as soon as it is responsible to do so. We film all over the country, and our videos are probably more affordable than you might think. So check out the links in the episode notes to find all the ways that you can contact me. I'd love to chat with you. For Terri Ross of Terri Ross Consulting, I'm Tim Cicciarelli with Inbound Films and the Inbound Podcasting Network.